Hello and welcome to this midweek reflection for the week of May the 11th. I'm going to light the candle as we begin to remind us of the presence of Christ, the living Christ around whom we gather in the season of Easter, reminding us of the way that love is stronger than hate, hope more powerful than despair, and life greater than death. As we begin today, I want to invite us to do something that is regularly done in the pattern of the Ignatian spiritual pathway, the tradition of Saint Ignatius. So when you sit down to have a prayer time or a quiet time or reflective time in the Ignatian tradition, the first thing that you are invited to do is to declare your state. If you have participated in a council meeting or a book study or almost any kind of a smaller gathering here at Mount Seymour United Church, you'll be familiar with our check-ins in which we invite people to say how it is that they come when they gather for a meeting or a study group. It's a way for us as a community to know how the other person is doing and to respond accordingly depending on what is shared. But beyond that, it's really an opportunity for us to get in touch with what's really going on for us as individuals. Because we can go through days, sometimes we can go through weeks and not check in with ourselves, not really know how it is with us and our souls. So as we begin today, take a moment to declare your state. How is it with you and your soul as you come to this time today? I notice that I'm pretty calm as I come to our time today. But I've also been noticing in these last few days that somewhere in my being there's little pieces of anxiety. And I'm thinking that's probably because of what's going on in our world, what's going on in our province and our country as we open things up a little bit more, as we begin to move beyond our sheltering in place. And I think that there's quite a few aspects of that actually that are making me feel kind of anxious. So it's good for me to know that about myself, because I could go through the day and not realize that that's the place that I'm functioning out of, or that that's a place of need for me, that my anxious being needs some tending. And that leads me to the second stage in an Ignatian prayer time, which is about seeking a grace. So Saint Ignatius asked his followers to seek particular kinds of graces. And what's meant by a grace is really a gift from the divine, a gift from God. Graces are things that we can't necessarily give to ourselves. And in the Ignatian tradition, graces are usually connected to our feelings. So we could ask God to win the lottery, pray to God to win the lottery. But a grace is really addressing something that's not a physical need, like the need for more money. It's more an internal need and something that can be addressed that is is something we feel. So I don't know, maybe winning the lottery, what I really need is a deeper sense of a felt sense of joy in my life. So I might be have an awareness of that and pray for the grace of joy. So I've just said that my state is a bit anxious. So the grace I might seek for myself in this time is a grace of calm, or a grace of deeper trust. What do you really need as you come to this time of reflection today? What's the grace you desire? The reading for today comes from the 12th chapter of Luke's Gospel, and I invite you to listen for a word or a phrase that speaks to you, that resonates for you. Jesus said to his disciples, "Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat, or about your body, what you will wear. For life is more than what you will wear. Life is more than food, and the body more than clothing. Consider the ravens. They neither sow nor reap. They have neither storehouse nor barn, and yet God feeds them. Of how much more value are you than the birds? And can any of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your span of life? If then you are not able to do a small thing as that, why do you worry about the rest? Consider the lilies, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. Yet I tell you, even Solomon in all of his glory was not clothed like one of these. But if God so clothes the grass of the field, which is alive today, and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, how much more will God clothe you, you of little faith? And do not keep striving for what you are to eat and what you are to drink, and do not keep worrying, for it is the nations of the world that strive after all these things, and God knows that you need them. Instead, strive for God's reign, and these things will be given to you as well. Do not be afraid, little flock, for it is God's good pleasure to give you the reign of God. Sell your possessions and give alms. Make purses for yourselves that you do not wear out, an unfailing treasure in heaven, where no thief comes near and no moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." And you might want to pause the recording at this point to do some writing in your journal, or you might want to listen to some questions that have certainly been evoked for me as I've listened to this passage. This passage comes immediately following the one that I read last week about the rich man who stores up all of his grain and all of his treasures in his barn. And so it's interesting that this reading that comes right after that one talks about how the ravens of the field don't have barns, right? They don't have any place to store all their possessions and their goods. And yet look at how much God provides for them. Everything they need, one day at a time, 1 hour at a time. So much provided for them. I wonder what is being provided for you. I know that it's been difficult for some of us to really focus on what's being provided for us in these days, because so much, it feels for so many of us, that so much is being taken away from us, or that many of us have sustained great losses. When it's difficult to focus on what's being provided for you, sometimes it's really good idea just to begin with kind of the basics, to begin with where you are at. So for example, I can notice that something that's being provided for me right now is the air that I breathe. It's just here. It's here in abundant quantities, enough to keep me going. This day has been provided for me, and I'm pretty safe and secure. I'm in my office right now. My office, this space has been provided for me. There's a couch beneath me, and I'm wearing clothing. Things are being provided for me. And even the way that I acquired some of these things, the clothing that I have, came somehow through the God-given gifts that I have, and the things in my life that I've been able to access to be able to afford to have something to wear. Start with the basics. Start small. Sometimes it helps us to focus on what's being provided. What's being provided for you. Another question that this passage evokes for me is, what does it mean to strive for the reign of God? When I think about the reign of God, I think about things like peace and justice, the inherent value of every human being, my own inherent value, the value of the created order. These things speak to me of the reign of God. The passage says that we're not to strive after the things that the nations strive for, which in the passage refer to food and drink. Don't be worrying about food and drink. Strive, think about the reign of God. And then it goes on to say that it's God's good pleasure to give us those things. And when we strive for those things, the other things, the food and the drink, somehow will be added into the mix. It kind of makes me think that there's something about striving after the value of other human beings, peace for everyone, that begets more peace, more value, maybe more sharing, that there's almost like a yeast-like quality to striving after the reign of God. What does it mean for you to strive after the reign of God? And finally, where is your heart? That is where your treasure is. That's where real treasure is. Wherever we place our heart, whatever we truly love, whatever truly loves us, that's the place where we find eternal treasure, the kind of treasure that lasts and lasts and lasts. Somehow, even when it's gone, it's still here. The place where our heart is. That's where our treasure is. Let's close in song. Hold us in your grace, O God. Hold us in your grace. Hold us in your grace, O God. Hold us in your grace. Hold us us in your grace. Hold us in your grace. Hold us in your grace, O God. Hold us in your grace. Hold us in your grace, O God. Hold us in your grace. Hold us in your grace. Hold us in your grace. May the Spirit bless us with wisdom and wonder as we continue to ponder the meaning of these sacred words for us this day and this week. May blessings abound. May you be well provided for this day. Amen.